Tanya. All right, here we go. Coffee cup mugs up. Toast. Good morning, everyone, to a Morning Word family. Thank you for joining with us. Shout out, hats off, and blessings upon all of our school teachers, first responders, and also our military personnel. God bless you. And God bless you and your country wherever you are, as we have people tuning in from other countries. The morning word this morning is swords. And the question at hand is it appropriate? And if so, when is it appropriate for Christians to take up arms? What would be the cause? What would be the background for that? If you have your Bible, let's go to Luke chapter 22. And let's look at verse 35. I'm just going to read three verses. Verse 35. And he said to them, that's the disciples, when I sent you without money bag, knapsack, and sandals, did you lack anything? And so they said nothing. Then he said to them, but now, you might want to circle that and underline that in your Bible. But now, because he's telling them things are changing. But now he who has a money bag, let him take it, and likewise a knapsack. And he who has no sword, let him sell his garment and buy one. For I say to you that this which is written must still be accomplished in me, and he was numbered with the transgressors. For the things concerning me have an end. Now what he's saying there is he's on the eve of his crucifixion. He's the prophecy that he was going to be considered to be a transgressor, that is a lawbreaker, a criminal, is yet to be accomplished, but it's going to be fulfilled. That's what he's saying. I'm going to be convicted as a criminal, and I'm going to go to the cross, and I'm going to die the death that criminals die on the cross. For the things concerning me have an end. That's what he was talking about. So they said, look, Lord, look, here are two swords. And he said to them, it is enough. Now, a lot has been said about these scriptures, a lot written, and I can't, in the few minutes that we have here, go into all the background and all the interpretations of what he meant there. But let's look at it in the context in which it was written. Jesus had sent them out at the beginning of their mission walk with him, and he sent them out and he said, don't carry any money, don't carry any extra tunics. And he was teaching them and to go out and preach the gospel, lay hands on the sick and so forth. So he was teaching them at the beginning that they needed to be 100% reliant upon other people. He was teaching them how to walk by faith. He said, if they receive you, go into their house, eat whatever they put on the table. If they reject you, wipe the dust off your feet. He was teaching them to trust him in their provision. Don't take a money bag. Don't take a sword. Don't take an outer garment, a coat, a jacket, whatever you want to call it today. So he said, trust me. But now, he says, if you have a money bag, take it. He said, if you have a knapsack, take that too. And if you don't have a sword, buy you one. Now, a lot of people spiritualize that. I've read a lot of commentaries, and they say, well, he wasn't really talking about a physical sword. I'm going, well, was he talking about a physical knapsack? Was he talking about a physical money bag? So what he was saying here is that I'm going to continue to do what I've been doing for you, but I'm going to do it through more than I'm going to do it supernaturally. That's not even the right way to say it. I'm going to continue to do supernatural things for you, but I'm going to also accomplish them through practical things. Okay, let me give you an example. When Jesus walks by and says, little girl, arise, and she gets up from the dead, we consider that to be a miracle. But at the same time, if she's been given a death sentence and she goes to the doctor, talking about today's terms, and she goes to the doctor and they give her medicine and people pray for her and say, God, let her live, and she lives, do we consider that a miracle? Yeah, we say that's a miracle. So, whether Jesus speaks a word or lays hands on someone or uses medicine to heal someone, is it any less an act of God? If I don't have a job and I'm sitting here and I'm saying, Lord, give me a job. I need a job so I can provide for my family. and someone calls me on the phone and offers me a job, we go, man, that was God. All right. But what if I go out, I get the newspaper, I start looking for jobs, and I go in and apply for a job that I like that has an opening, and I get it? Is that any less God? Okay. So what we have a tendency to think is that it's either God doing it or us doing it, but it could never be both. Well, I ask you to go to Proverbs 21, and let's look at this. In Proverbs 21:31, and then I'm going to look at 22:3 as well. Let's read this verse. The horse is prepared for the day of battle, but deliverance is of the Lord. In chapter 22, verse 3, a prudent man foresees evil and hides himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. The question is should I prepare my horse for the day of battle? Should I be prepared to go to war if I need to go to war? Let's just look at it this way. Should I have locks on my doors at home, or should I trust Jesus to keep me safe? Should I wear my seatbelt in my car, or should I trust Jesus to keep me safe? Should I have a weapon in my home to protect my family, or should I trust Jesus to keep me safe? You say, well, Pastor Randy, it's both of them. Absolutely, that's my point. It says up in verse 21:31, the horse is prepared for the day of battle. That means there's a time to fight. Chapter 22, verse 3 says, a prudent man foresees evil and hides himself. There's a time to hide. There's a time to step down, scale down, and be quiet. Solomon said in Ecclesiastes, there's a time for everything under the sun, a time to sow, a time to reap, a time to weep, a time to laugh, and a time to fight, and a time to put down your sword, a time of peace. So I'm trying to make a couple of points here that I think that the church has over-spiritualized. And that is that we can't be trusting of God and functional as human beings in practical means ourselves. Now, where this comes into play is this. The United States of America was founded by men who felt like the oppression of England, for a lot of reasons, one of which was the spiritual oppression, was not suitable for the life that they wanted to live. And so they took up arms, Puritans and Christian men, and went to war and started an insurrection, a revolution that birthed this nation. Now, somehow we've gotten the idea that we can live in this nation and that the time would never come when we would have to do that again. Or that since we're now free men and we've been born free, it's just kind of our right to be free. And so therefore, we should have freedom, but we should never have to make a sacrifice for it. We ought to just wake up every morning and it's just there to greet us. Freedom's just here, boys. It's just yours. And everybody ought to understand that. It doesn't work that way, guys, in this world. Jesus told these guys, listen, when he put that little phrase in there, but now, what he says is there's a transition that's going to take place. And now you're going to be considered the bad guys. You're going to face opposition. And I'm going to provide for you, but you're going to need a knapsack. I'm going to provide clothes for you, but you're going to need to take a jacket with you. I'm going to protect you, but you need to take a sword. I'm going to provide for you, but you need to have some money. I don't know why people can't understand that. And somehow to be a patriot has now been termed nationalist, which goes forward into the next term, racist. So if I love my country, I kind of like waking up in America. That's why when I go to foreign countries, and I always come home. I like it here. I like what those stars and bars represent. And I appreciate the fact that there were good, godly Christian men and women who went to war at some place in time, and they took a sword. And they spilled blood, and their blood was spilled so that I could wake up this morning and do exactly what I'm doing right here. Did you know they can't do this right here in China? And it's severely restricted in Russia. They don't do this. And you know why? It's because they don't have a country that allows that. But we have a country that allows that. Now, here's a question. Should a Christian have a sword? Should a Christian use it? And when should a Christian use it? Well, I can't tell you that. I can tell you that a Christian should have a sword. And a Christian should use it, and there's a time and a place to use it. For those people who say that we shouldn't protect our country against those who are trying to undermine it or overtake it at some point in time, And I'm not saying that that's right now. I'm not saying that we ought to fall out in the street and shoot everybody that has a different opinion. I'm not saying that. But when our very standard of life and way of life and the Constitution of the United States is being threatened, should we take up a sword? Absolutely. People say, no, you shouldn't do that. This earth is not our home. So let me ask you a question. Did the doors of your house have locks? Well, yeah, Pastor Randy, they have locks. Oh, okay. Well, if somebody breaks in your house, are you going to defend your home, or are you going to tell everybody, this earth is not my home? You want to shoot me? Go ahead and shoot me, shoot my wife, and shoot my kids. This earth is not my home. Kumbaya, John 3:16. No, that's not what you're going to do. You're going to fight. So my question is, okay, it's appropriate to fight to defend your home and defend your family. What about your neighborhood? What about your street? And we can progress this argument to, what about your town? What about your state? You go, oh yeah, if the people coming in here and infiltrating, they're trying to take over, oh yeah. Well, what about your country? Oh no, Pastor, we're not supposed to do that with our country. And I'm going, you cannot have it both ways. It's either right to take up a sword and do what's necessary when it's necessary, or it's not. Jesus told these men, you say, well, Pastor Randy, he didn't really mean that because the disciples went on and they never had an armed resistance. Let me throw something down here. Peter's in the upper room. He didn't go and get a sword. He had a sword. Peter said, here, Lord, I have a sword right here. Oh, actually, two of us have swords. Now, what does that mean? That means that during the 3 years of the time that he's walking with Jesus, he had a sword. He had one. Now, if we're going to go by supposition and spiritualize everything, was that Jesus didn't really mean that, let me ask you this question. Why didn't Jesus tell him to sell his sword? Why didn't Jesus tell them, you're not going to need a sword, you're not going to need money, you're not going to need clothes, I'm going to provide it? He didn't do that. The horse is prepared for the day of battle, but deliverance is from the Lord. And I don't know why Christians are so super spiritual as to think that we should never stand up and defend our nation when they would all agree that they would defend their home. Well, I got news for them. You wouldn't have a home to defend if it wasn't for your nation. I don't understand why American Christians, and I'm not going to call names, but you can search them out on the internet. I don't understand why American Christians would expect the military of the United States to defend this country tooth and nail to their death, while we sell our swords, get rid of our weapons, and sing Kumbaya. I don't understand that. I don't understand why we think someone else should provide for our freedom, but not us. I don't understand why someone else should sacrifice for our nation, but not us. I don't understand. That makes Christians some of the most cowardly people in the world. I understand that this world is not my home, which means that this home is not my home. But if you bust up in here trying to take something or trying to hurt me, you're going to find quickly that I have a sword, a lot of them, and I know how to use them. Now, you can sing Kumbaya and you can be a pacifist if you want to, but stop. But here's what I would say. You need to get out of the way of the people that's providing you some freedom. If you're not going to fight, then shut up and get over to the side and be quiet. Woody Sarton's daddy used to tell him when he was teaching him how to work on heavy equipment, he said, son, if you're not going to get down there and put your hands on it, get out of the way and let the men get to it. And so if you want to live in this country and you want to rise and abide under the freedoms and the liberties that those stars and bars provide for you, I would suggest that you be willing to sacrifice for them, hold high regard for the people that provide for it. And when it comes time to throw down, get out of the way and be quiet. I am not an insurrectionist. I'm not a patriot that's looking for a fight. But I like this country. And I kind of like the way it was, not the way it is right now, and the way it was and where it's going. And I'm just trying, I want want people to understand this. I want my American Christian friends. Now, you guys that live in other countries, I really can't speak to what's going on in your country. I'm not privy to that. But here's what I know. The United States of America has been the premier country since its inception in benevolence, care, supplies, help, defense, and whatever it is, money. We pay more money to the UN than any other nation in the world. We provide more troops around the world to protect the freedoms of other people than any other country in the world. We go to bat for the oppressed more than any other country in the world. It would behoove other countries in the world where there are Christians who receive benefits from this country. It would behoove you to pray that our country remains as it used to be instead of where it's going. We're the number one missionary sending nation in the world. We're the number one giving nation in the world. Period. Now, I'm not saying that the gospel is dependent upon America, but what I'm saying is that America has been the number one promoter of the gospel, preacher of the gospel, sender of the gospel, and benevolence around the world, period, bar none. So when America loses, and here's something I need my brothers and sisters, I want to call names, but I'm not going to call them. Here's what I want them to know. When you lose America and the freedoms that she has always enjoyed, you are going to lose with it your religious and spiritual freedoms, which means that they are not going to let you waltz down there to the First Baptist Church and bust off up in there and preach against sexual immorality, transgenderism, critical race theory. They're not going to let you do that. When the government takes over your rights and civil liberties, they're going to take over your rights and civil liberties, and they're going to tell you what's right. And if you don't say and follow what's right, they're going to correct you in a not Christian way. You're going to lose the right. And you know what's going to happen in America if we let her go down into the trough of socialism? And socialism would be a kind place for it to end. It's going to go worse than that. But you know what would happen? The church is going to have to go underground. Christians are going to have to meet underground like they do in communist China. They have a public church in China, but it's not the church. It's a laundered, man-filtered, pseudo-religious faith that the Chinese government will tolerate. Do we want that in America? You say, no, Pastor Aaron, we don't want that. Well, listen, when you lose your country, that's what we're going to become. I don't understand. I cannot for the life of me understand the rationale of people's thinking. That the way we got here, and now that we are here as a nation established, that's just automatic, that's just going to continue to happen. I don't have to be Christian or American. I can be Christian and American. And I can defend my country lock, stock, and barrel and still be a Christian. Just like I can defend my family to the death and still be a Christian. I don't understand it. You wouldn't let anybody walk in your house, break down your doors, and take your family off, but you want somebody else. You don't care if that happens to your country. You don't. I have to just stop because I'm at a loss for words. I don't understand it. But here's what I will say. If you haven't, and I know most of you haven't, if you haven't put on a uniform, taken an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, and these are the very words, both foreign, that means outside, and domestic. If you've never been willing to put your life in the hands of another man and put another man's hands, and another man put his life in your hands, if you've never been willing to shed or did shed blood for the freedom of others, for the rights of others, then for God's sake, would you please shut up and be quiet and keep your little pacifist voice to yourself and sit over in the corner when it's time for those men to stand up? Would you please be quiet? Would you please be quiet? Because the last thing that I want to do while I'm defending my family is to have an argument with my wife. That's not the time to bring up about the dog using the restroom in the house, that the carport hadn't been swept, and that the garbage hadn't been taken out. When I'm defending my family, the last thing I want to have is an argument with my wife. And when it comes time to defend our freedoms and defend our country, the last thing I want to do is have an argument with some other Christian who's trying to tell me that I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing. Here's all I ask. If you're not willing to step up and put your hands on it, then please, for God's sake, step to the side and just be quiet. And let the men take over. Here's what I know. I'm going to be a little facetious here, but I'm going to it'll make my point. When it comes time to defend the Bible, the gospel, and the United States of America, you're not going to find a whole lot of people wearing skinny jeans and drinking lattes in the line. And let the men put their hands to it. See you tomorrow. Good Lord willing, and the saints don't rise. Peace out.